Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Seventh Man podcast. I'm Will Beverina. I run Dimer2K.com and write about the NBA 2K League.
I'm Josiah Cohen, whom you may know as AJ113_OS, and I write about the NBA 2K League for TSN and for Operation Sports.
We're back for episode 4. You can check out all of our previous episodes on the channel here on the Seventh Man podcast on YouTube. As always, we want to thank everyone who has listened to any of the episodes so far. The support, no matter how big or small, is always appreciated. For now, let's talk about Week 8. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard that there was a new patch introduced to the league before Week 8. It made a number of changes to all the archetypes, and while people like us, Josiah, didn't get the full patch notes, some of the changes are up on the league website, and we were able to glean some information from Dirk, who talked about the archetype changes a lot during the broadcast over the weekend. So let's talk about the patch because it's a major change to everything. So Josiah, give me your general impression of the patch. Are you a fan of it or no?
I think I'm more a fan of it than I thought I would be, I suppose. I was mostly concerned going in about how it would totally upend the narratives that the league had built throughout the first 8 weeks of the regular season and 2 tournaments, and it did that in a sense. Knicks Gaming beat 76ers Gaming. That's a primary example of it. But I think it did a lot of good things in it changed some clearly OP strategies that were being deployed. While it may have created another one, we'll get to that in a moment. But it kind of ran everyone off that standard, same exact five archetype starting lineup that had become so prevalent. And for that, I think it was a success. But the problems it may have created, I think we can't really tell after the very first week of it. We'll have to see in the ticket tournament, how those pan out, and if we've created a bigger and scarier monster than the one we slayed.
Yeah, I gotta say, for the most part, I liked it. You talked about. I think the overall goal of the patch was to give us a greater diversity in the kinds of archetypes we saw. And we did see a bunch of new archetypes and a bunch of new lineup compositions, including a slashing defender as
Thank
small
you,
forward.
Profusion. Thank you, CLTX Gaming. That truly made my night. That was phenomenal to see.
I was just amazed when when I saw the Celtics running out a slashing defender at small forward. But the fact that it brought back the shot creating slasher really brought it down a lot for me. I really don't understand why they buffed that build as much as they did. We saw it at the tip off, and teams kind of figured it out, right? Only really the Wizards ran a shot creating slasher too much after the first couple weeks of the season. And then what they did to the shot creating slasher was they gave it a dimer badge, which when you pass it to a teammate and they shoot, has a slightly higher chance of going in. And they gave it a gold posterizer badge, which gives you better ability to convert contact dunks. And then they gave it more mid-range shooting, which I don't know why they needed to add all of that to that build. And not every team ran it, but we saw it with Wizards District versus Grizz Gaming, where it was just a 5-out small forward battle the entire game.
Yeah, in my mind, that was a travesty. It's hard to want an immediate recoil to what was already a recoil, and ask for this to be even amended. But to me personally, watching that Wizards and Grizz game was just not enjoyable, because it was just Boo and Authentic African going downhill at each other. And I'm not saying that the two are not talented players without that archetype. I think, in fact, they're some of the most talented players in the entire league. But it's just, downhill, 5 out, contact dunk, absolute posterizer, which looks good in the highlights, but it doesn't look good to watch in real time, because it becomes just so repetitive and so regularized. So it's nothing amazing. What part of what makes LeBron James great is that he's one of the few people, maybe the only player, who can really do that in real life. And when you have what seems like a player on every team who can run with this shot creating slasher and just go downhill and into the paint and posterize someone, it loses a lot of that uniqueness that is such an important part in building up star players and creating highlights.
Right, and Dirk kind of actually predicted this. He tweeted out when he saw the all the patch notes and the changes, he said, we're gonna see that shot creating slasher come back and we're gonna see 5 out. And that's exactly what happened. And it's kind of caused this debate over, a lot of people don't like the change, that a lot of the players in the league don't like that change, and then others are like, well, just stop it. Find out a way to stop it, stop whining. Well, obviously, Wizards District has been definitely the most vocal about just find a way to stop it for obvious reasons. Boo Painter getting the second ever triple double in the league history off of that build. But there's it's not like teams are just going to whine and they're not even going to try to find a way to stop it. It's just like, it shouldn't be, I guess, so easy. And again, we're not saying Boo Painter isn't a great player. He's a great player, top 5, top 10 player in the league. But, it's no coincidence that we got a triple double this week as soon as that build got buffed. So there's a middle ground there. And of course, today it came out that the league banned the stiff arm animation, which has been used in conjunction with that shock ring slasher build, and it's really hard to defend when someone activates that stiff arm animation. The league banned it. Now, note that that doesn't mean they've removed it because they can't actually remove it, I think, from like a technical standpoint. So it comes down to, using that stiff arm can result in fines or suspensions or even forfeits, according to Grant Paranjape of Wizards District. So, what do you think of that stiff arm ban?
I think it's very contentious. Obviously, as you mentioned, it goes along with the patch and just being such an easy move. I do not like the idea that teams will have to forfeit a game. I can't speak to the exact technical particularities of whether it can be, triggered accidentally, but if it possibly can, then you get into some very muddy waters as to the penalties. I think what just cements its contentiousness is that I asked Commissioner Donahue about it. He wasn't eager to talk with me about it. Didn't really get a clear statement from him on the ban
Understandable.
on the matter, which is understandable. But at
Right.
the same time, you want to think that a decision that the league makes is a decision that the league is prepared to defend. I'm not saying that the stiff arm wasn't clearly a an unrealistic part of the league that they wanted to change, but I'm saying that, and I'm also of the opinion that yes, you should find a way to stop it because at the end of the day, it's a video game. But it's very tough to start all of a sudden getting into these situations where you're forced to try and tighten and narrow the walls of what's permissible. And the more you keep doing that, the more you shave the lane of what is in fact permissible, and the more you inflict and impose yourself upon the gameplay of the league.
Yeah, I have a couple of problems with the stiff arm ban. One being that once you get to the point where you're banning like in-game mechanics that are within like the technical confines of the game, that's where it gets, like you said, a little contentious and it gets a little muddy, right? So that part I don't like doing, just in my experience. And to be fair, there's a difference between the blow by and the stiff arm animation. And most players I've seen on Twitter, both in the league and pro am players, say that you can't really accidentally do a stiff arm animation. There's like something you have to do, like flicking the right stick up when you're engaged in a blow by. And but I did see a couple of other players say like they've accidentally done a stiff arm before. So it seems to be, I don't know, it seems for the most part you can control it, which was my biggest worry, in that someone would accidentally do it a couple times and then they get suspended or have to forfeit the game, which no one wants to see that. But it's at least a little better knowing that it's for the most part, as far as we know, Josiah, you and I, we cover the league because we're not nearly good enough to be in the league, right? So it I don't really, I guess I'm not too into those little mechanics, those little controls and doing things like that. But I guess my second point is this didn't need to happen in the first place. The league had every opportunity to prevent it from even getting here, and it started with not buffing that shot creating slasher so much, where everyone is complaining about it. So those are my issues with it. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about week 8, the games themselves. We're talking a lot about a few different things, so we're only gonna go over a couple of games in depth here. Starting off with Blazer 5 Gaming versus Cavs Legion. This was 64-53 win for Blazer 5, and it actually wasn't that close, Josiah. Cavs Legion had this lead for pretty much the entire game, and then they collapsed in the fourth quarter. What did you see in this game?
Collapse is right, and you know, I think one way that Cavs Legion might have avoided this was having Hood run a particular position on a particular archetype. But without getting ourselves back into that, I must say that to comment on Blazer 5, there are cracks in the armor. We saw it previously. They've lost recently. They fell to Celtics crossover gaming, and here, they weren't the best team on the sticks for the majority of the game, and now they had a dominant fourth quarter, 22-6, in that final frame. But there are cracks in the armor. They are turning the ball over more now than they have in the past. What seems to be far more, in my opinion. They got shots back to being a really good, part of their winning makeup, which was something we talked about last episode. But Mama only shot 6 of 15, 0 of 4 from beyond the arc. He had 6 turnovers. That's not to take anything away from him, but I think it further proves the idea that Walnut is truly the driving force. And Walnut had a phenomenal game, seemed to gobble up every single rebound that was out there. So, you know, at some point, I think that Blazer 5 Gaming is going to lose to what we perceive as a bad team. And when it happens, I will say then that it's been showing for a little while. I hope they'll prove me wrong. They are not a bad team, but they are certainly no longer this impenetrable, phenomenal defensive, phenomenal offensive team that we have made them out to be, and that their record indicates.
Yeah, I think that's because like this is a team known for doing a lot of talking, and they don't talk when they're down, right? So if you get like an early lead on them, you've like done a huge service for yourself because you don't have to fight the mental battle of trying to block out Blazer 5, trying to get in your head, right? And so that's exactly, this was a close game. It was 13-12 after the first quarter in favor of Blazer 5, but they're still not doing a lot of talking. And that's like the third straight week now where it's even been mentioned on the broadcast how little energy it seemed that Blazer 5 had. So you're absolutely right about that. They weren't doing a lot of talking, and that's why you're also right about the Cavs Legion did not make a single lineup or archetype change or position change or any of that, which I was shocked. Like, if you're going to pick one player to get onto that buffed shot creating slasher, it would be Hood.
Undoubtedly,
But they kept him,
undoubtedly, no
yeah,
question about it. He's the one.
and they kept him at power forward. And they tried to do some 5 out with Hood running it, and that had some success, but Hood had 26 points, but he was 11 for 23. So it wasn't an efficient 26. And you talked about the turnovers, a lot of turnovers, especially in this first half. It was probably like 4 straight possessions of Blazer 5 where they turned the ball over. Like you said, Mama, I'm that man, 6 turnovers in this game, but Walnut really kept them in it. He was rebounding like a fiend. 17 rebounds, which is up there with, the best single game rebounding performances in the regular season that we've seen in this league so far. Kept them in it, just kept them within striking distance. And then shots came alive in that fourth quarter. He was on the sharpshooting rim protector, ended up going 4 for 5 from three, and a lot of those came in the fourth quarter. So again, you're right though. Like we're starting to see some cracks in the armor. It's not as dominant, right? Ever since really the turn, it hasn't been as dominant. And they went off in that tournament, and now I mean they look very human. Where as before they looked unstoppable.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the turn was almost too easy for them. Things, as you say, have certainly changed, and things will continue to change because part of the reason they're able to mitigate the deleterious effect of the increased turnover numbers is their rebounding, which gets them second chance opportunities and just more cracks at it on the offensive end. But with 6 minute quarters, you only get so many offensive possessions, and if the rebounding dries up, which again, it won't necessarily do since Blazer 5 are arguably the best team in the league at it. But there are other teams that are good at cleaning the glass and who will take away some of these, 17 rebounds for Walnut. And, 2 or 3 possessions at this point in the year with Blazer 5 playing a little worse, that could make all the that could make all the difference in the world. Just those 2 or 3 possessions. That they're not a team as they were in the turn who can put up 90 plus points in 2 consecutive games. They're not doing that. So I think, as I said, I think they're feeling a little more uncomfortable in their seats. But luckily for them, the gap has almost widened at the top of the regular season standings.
Yeah, they've got a cushion up there, and I think even though Cavs Legion scored 53 points in this one, I still think they showed they're a pretty dang good team. And you gotta think that maybe they'll make some changes, maybe with the stiff arm ban. I don't know if they'll put Hood onto that shot creating slasher. We'll see though. That seems like the obvious move though to just about everyone. But let's move on to Pacers Gaming versus 76ers Gaming Club. 76ers Gaming coming out with the win 73 to 69 in overtime. However, Josiah, we've talked the last couple weeks in regards to the Warriors about maybe deserving to win a game. I mean, Pacers Gaming was up the entire time and somehow choked in the fourth quarter, lost in overtime. What'd you see in this game?
Oh, this is a tough one. A chance to lock up the number one seed for the turn, and a team very well deserving of that number one seed for their complete season turnaround in weeks 5 to 8. I'm glad that the Pacers haven't played so many games. They're not one of the teams who's played 10 games, who've only got 4 regular season ones left, where such a loss at this point is devastating to them. But man, this is a very very tough one to stomach for Pacers Gaming. I'm a big fan. They run so many plays, they run so many off ball screens, but it seems like they almost had a chance. They benefited a lot, it must be said, from a 76ers team that looked completely out of sorts and completely unlike any previous effort we'd seen out of them all year. But man, how good would it have felt to beat the team to hand 76ers an 0-2 record on the day and a 3-3 record in the 4 week, excuse me, the 4 week quadrant of the season. This is a very tough one to stomach.
Yeah, Pacers Gaming was on a 3 game win streak. They started out 0-4, clawed back to 3-4, and were suddenly on the brink, like on that playoff bubble, which I don't think anyone really saw coming. And this was one that would have just been monumental. And like they would have had so much momentum and would have been so confident. And now they're 3-5. And at this point in the season, there's a pretty big difference between 4-4 and 3-5, which I think we can agree on, right?
Yeah, but they are 3-5. As I'm saying, they're not 4-6. Being 3-5 is so much better than being 4-6 at this point.
Right, that's true, right? You want as few losses as possible, obviously, which, obviously, duh. But, it's man, like, let me give you let me give you some numbers from this fourth quarter here. Like I said, Pacers Gaming was leading it the entire time. They didn't actually make any changes to their lineup, which again, talking about like obvious candidates to go onto that buff shot creating slasher. Wolf staying at point guard. I guess they wanted to just, it's been working for the last few weeks. So why not keep at it, right? But it was an 11-point game, 58-47. The Pacers had the ball with 2 minutes and 20 seconds left in this game. 11-point game with 2:20 left. Pacers had the ball. Then, after they hit a three-pointer, I believe, it was 61-54 Pacers with 40 seconds left. And they lost this game, Josiah. And that we've seen this happen a few times with various different teams. The Wizards collapsed against the Celtics at one point in the season. Warriors collapsed a couple times, but I mean, this one I think probably when it comes to like playoff implications and what it means for your season, this was probably the most devastating collapse we've seen in the league. 76ers, they didn't switch much during their first game against Knicks Gaming earlier in the day, and they lost. So this time, they come out with ZDS at point guard, Feast at shooting guard on the pure sharp, Nudini going to power forward on the sharpshooting rim protector, and Radiant taking over at small forward on that shot creating slasher. They tried doing the 5 out at first, didn't look quite comfortable with it. And, Radiant, I think, wasn't really used to running the offense like that. The 76ers have such a clear system that they want to do, and everyone knows what kind of system they want to run. But once Radiant started getting more aggressive, they were kind of crawling back into it a little bit. But I mean, still, uh, man, this is really, like I said, the most devastating loss we've seen in the regular season so far.
Yeah, I mean, one good thing about Radiant being on that build was that he had sufficient height to grab that all-important offensive rebound to kick out to Feast for the game-tying three. But they're just so much better and so much more enjoyable to watch when they're back to their old pre-patch play style. I would like to see them return to that, and I think they're better suited. I think Radiant is top two point guard in the league when they run that, especially when they're going up against a team that didn't use that buff shot creating slasher. But if Radiant was getting shut down for half by Gunnar at small forward, please return to point guard. Just go back to being that team. I mean, all right, you lost to the Knicks, fine, crazy, but fine. I would not consider one loss as being cause to ditch something that has worked all season, and it's just so much better to watch. And as you said, players are much more comfortable with that, and comfort is something very, very important at this point in the season.
Yeah, completely agreed about sticking with your system for the 76ers. You mentioned Radiant grabbing that offensive rebound to kick it out to Feast for the game tying three. That was another thing I wanted to mention about that shot creating slasher. It seemed like it was able to grab a lot of rebounds. But anyway, well,
Oh, what can't it do? I would be surprised if it couldn't simultaneously go grab a pizza from the corner
yeah,
at the same time as putting up 20 points and 10 assists. It's well, it can do a lot of things.
yeah, we saw it hit a couple threes. So I mean, it's a do it all build, and it didn't need to be this way. Anyway,
No, shout out to Profusion greening the first ever 3 pointer on a slashing defender, and then it will never be replicated ever,
r-
ever again.
I tweeted that was the first and last green three from a slashing defender we'll ever see in the league, and it kind of unfortunately gave him a green light to shoot more, and
Hilarious,
it
brilliant game planning by Famous,
it
brilliant.
didn't work out too well. Let's just say. Speaking of that game, by the way, we won't talk about the game itself too much, but there was a situation, let's call it, after the Celtics crossover gaming and the Heat Check Gaming game. what happened, it was sharpshooter lows. Well, obviously, let's do some background here. We know Mel East is a guy that's very passionate when he plays, let's call it, and a guy who does a lot of trash talking. And Mel East put up a goose egg, I think, 0 points, but he was still talking a lot, right? And Heat Check, I guess, weren't fans of that. And Heat Check won this game. So what happened after is sharpshooter Los and I believe it was Hot Shot.
No, no, drop
It was
off.
drop off. Okay.
Yeah.
They both jumped up like onto that center like stage that separates the two teams, and they were doing a lot of talking and kind of like almost like approaching Mel. Of course they were directing a lot of it towards Mel East, and Mel East looked like he wanted to get up on that stage and either do or say something. And fortunately, Michael Wan, the Celtics gaming manager, was there to hold back Mel. There was I guess an NBA 2K League security guy was there to come in and break things up. Let's talk about some more background with this. Rico, the head coach for Celtics Gaming, he wasn't happy with the entire situation. He tweeted something out about it. Sharpshooter Los, who was up there and who was kind of like, I guess, the main, I don't know, we'll say agitator of the situation, tweeted about it. And he said he went, quote, a bit overboard. And there were some accusations that Heat Check was saying some personal things in their trash talking. Famous and the team denied it, said no such thing happened. Mel tweeted out and said that he wanted to just get up there and say good game. And then everyone else seemed pretty cool with the situation, like Fab and all those guys were just like, yeah, it is what it is. Most people seem to be like, seem to like it and say, it's passionate and it's intense and the league needs more of it. What's your take on it, Josiah?
I think we agree, and I think in agreeing, we disagree with the majority opinion, because it is what it is until someone takes a swing, and there's a reason the NBA automatically suspends people who get off the bench during a scrum on the court. They do not want a repeat of the Malice at the Palace. And I'm not comparing this to the Malice at the Palace. Far, far from it. It was exciting, no doubt, but it's excitement that clearly can turn into more. In my opinion, this is. I think it's in a sense foolish to think that what happened is the utmost extent of what could possibly happen. Uh, one swing is all it takes to completely change things. I don't think players should be allowed to get up on the stage. I know that they are allowed to. I do not think so. I think you should take after the NBA in this case. Maybe they can get up there and for some reason, if they want to say good game up there for some reason, like maybe after the final. But I think that's clearly a moment of extreme passion. And I'm not saying that we should cut back on any trash talking, because there is a lot of excitement and importance tied up in that. But first of all, you shouldn't be trash talking when you score 0 points. That should be commonly agreed upon rule. But again, it just takes one spark to create a fire, and I don't think that yelling at each other on the stage is the furthest extent of potential damages. There's much more that can happen, and I don't think that's what the league wants.
You said pretty much everything I wanted to say, especially remember, this is an NBA run operation, and the NBA has gone to great lengths to make sure that fights don't happen in their league because it does take just one swing for who knows what could happen. You know, all chaos to break loose, the image of the league. It's mostly about like image and all that, right? Like you don't want to be known. You want to be known as a league that's like super passionate and all the players love what they're doing. You don't want to be known as the league where anyone could go off at any point and there could just be a bunch of fights, right? And that was kind of my point when I said as well that I don't think you should be able to get up on that center stage because nothing happened this time, but you can't guarantee that nothing would ever happen if that kept, if that situation kept occurring, right? And I'm not trying to say that anyone in this league is like, some violent dude who just wants to fight everyone. Far from it. Like Mel said he just wanted to get up there and say GG. We don't really know exactly what he wanted to do. He looked pretty mad, but I'm not going to sit here and accuse him of saying, he wanted to go up there and swing. I can't say that. Right? But when you get, these players who are really into it and they're just pumped full of adrenaline during these games, who knows what could happen? It just takes like one bad day for a player, one bad game, or even one person just saying something a little bit over the line, right? And that fires someone else up and they want to do something about it. So it's mostly about prevention and making sure that you can't even get close to the point where something bad like a punch being thrown could ever occur. That you never ever want that to happen. So, I, I'm a fan of the trash talking. It's great. We all want to see it. We all want to hear it. It's funny and it's intense, but do the trash talking from the chair and then get in line and say good game. And let that be the end of it because it really is, it's all love between these players at the end. After the game, no one holds any sort of ill will towards anyone, right? As far as we know anyway. But I mean, it doesn't seem like anyone actually hates anyone else in this league. But just don't let it get to that point in the first place. It's a slippery slope, I guess, is both of our points. I realize though that not everyone agrees with us on that, but uh, you know, just don't let it don't, don't let something happen that can't be taken back, I guess.
Right. Think about it. Say there is a ban on going up on that center stage, within 5 minutes of the end of a game. What does that detract from the league experience? Nothing that I can think of off the top of my head. The only thing it does is prevent a potential inflammatory situation. There's nothing to be gained by continuing to rub it into a player's face after things happen, because you do start to build grudges and you start to build up this thing where potentially the next time, say next week, for in a hypothetical situation, say the Celtics come back and absolutely blow Heat Check out of the water, which is not going to happen. They don't play each other next week. And Mel scores 20 points and has 5 blocks. You think he's not getting up there? And this is not again, this is of course not to target Mel, who's a perfectly good guy, great guy, nothing against him.
Exactly.
Um, it, it these things can escalate, and because the stairs are there does not mean you should walk up them, literally and figuratively. In this case, it's a beautiful stage, fantastic stage, love the setup the league has going on, but it doesn't need to be a stage for something ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we're definitely in agreement on all of that. Anyway, let's move on to the rest of the week. Give me your rapid fire thoughts. Pistons GT 64, Kings Guard 61.
I know we were both glad to see that some things never change. As I said, death taxes and Kingsguard not being a very good communicating defense. I think Timely is better. He was good with that shot creating slasher. Of course, who wouldn't be? But I think it suits him especially well. But some things never change. Some things just never ever change.
Yeah, same old with Kings Guard. It's just still so much frustration. You could see the offense is broken, the defense is broken. Pistons GT at 6-3, pretty good record for them. They're third in the standings right now. Kind of a fun fact about Pistons GT: they're 6-3 at third place with a negative 33 point differential. So there you go.
Those,
Anyway,
those darn blowout losses. Also, other thought, Ramo, fantastic.
Celtics crossover gaming 65, Heat Check Gaming 68.
Hotshot should be getting some serious MVP consideration. I've been saying it all along. It's my greatest long running sports prediction prognostication since I correctly predicted the final four penalty kicks of the England Colombia game, including the off the crossbar miss.
Yeah, hot shot, man. It seems weird that he kind of almost flies under the radar, it seems, when it comes to the MVP consideration. But we talked about profusion on that slashing defender. Green, the first three, went 1 of 6. He shot way too much on a build that has no business shooting. Big win for Heat Check, though. 2 straight wins against 2 quality opponents. They are in the driver's seat, I believe, for getting one of those final 4 playoff spots. Grizz Gaming 73, Bucks Gaming 63.
Very very good win for the Grizz, but is the Bucks rope starting to run out? They just don't seem to be able to fully capitalize on offense. They're just not a good offensive team. It seems they haven't unlocked the door to having a very successful offense, and that's not doing them any good. They're kind of the team, one of the teams that's been flying under the radar, but this time for good reason. They're not doing so well.
Yeah, Bucks Gaming was at 3-4 just 2 weeks ago, knocking on the door of playoff contention, and now they're 3-6. And I think some of the same problems that really plagued them in the beginning of the season are coming back to bite them. We talked about Cavs Legion Blazer 5, 76ers GC 70, Knicks Gaming 77.
Ah, wow, it sure made me look bad for what I said on the last podcast. I'm not Cam. What the heck happened in this? This was exactly what I was fearing. I'm not saying that, the Knicks don't deserve to beat the 76ers, but dear Lord, what a shock this would have been, without this patch. This would have been absolutely insane. The story of the season. And the Knicks are still not going to the playoffs. They're 3-7. They can at best go 7-7. They're not going to the playoffs, and they dug their own hole, so they can stay in it for a bit.
Yeah, new patch doing wonders for Knicks Gaming. They really ran this offense through Idris and Goofy to great effect, but like you said, too little, too late. It's merely a consolation for Knicks Gaming. Wizards District 88, Grizz Gaming 78.
Boo, boo, Painter. Boo, 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 Painter. Yeah, that basically sums up the entire game. Also, shout out to the Washington Post for doing a story on Boo.
Yeah, cool piece by the Washington Post, but I mean, not much to talk about in this game, honestly. Just a bunch of 5 out and running it through the small forwards. Not exactly too exciting. Boo Painter getting the second ever triple double, which is cool, but I mean, do you put an asterisk next to that? Whatever. Mavs Gaming 60, Warriors Gaming 63.
Are the Mavs a championship caliber team? It doesn't really seem like it, and I'm not saying that because they lost to the 17th team in the league, who I think we both agree are better than their record and their standing indicates. Good to see Tommy and the crew finally getting a much deserved win after so long, but do we really start to worry at this point about number one pick Dimes and the Mavericks?
I say no. The lineup change this game for Mavs Gaming moved Dave Fry to small forward. Didn't quite work out for them, but like you said, good for Warriors Gaming squad. They lost to the top 2 teams in the league by a combined 6 points. Finally broke through with a win over a pretty good team. I still definitely put Mavs in that conversation for a championship, but I mean, it's
They're
not
five and
guaranteed.
four. They're five
That
and four. You
that's
know
what
who
I was
else is
about to
5 and
say.
4? The Magic are 5 and 4.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. At 5-4, it's not guaranteed they even make the playoffs, which is a shame for a team with this quality. But anyway, Warriors Gaming 77, Raptors Uprising 81.
Had some good thoughts on this in my column for TSN. Cough, cough, plug, plug. But good to see the Raptors getting a win. And, this was the first time all year all 5 of their players have scored in double digits, which is great for them. All hell Trey is definitely on that all versatility team along with Authentic African. They really scored in this one, and good on them for really finding a lineup that worked pretty well.
Yeah, they scored a lot because they hit a lot of 3-pointers in this game. I
That's the
don't have
way
the
to go.
box
That's
score
the
up,
way to
but
go.
a 3-point barrage for Raptors Uprising. They're at 4-6, and we'll say outside shots at making the playoffs. And final game of the week, Magic Gaming 71, Jazz Gaming 68.
I take back everything I've ever said about the Magic.
You
They're going to the
better.
playoffs. They're going to the playoffs, baby. They're doing it.
Wow.
They're going to the playoffs. This Magic team is going to the playoffs. Someone, I mean, someone had the genius idea way back when of putting King Cam royalty into the starting lineup. That whoever that was should get an automatic promotion and a raise. The Magic came back from, what was it, a 15-point deficit to beat
Yeah.
what we thought was a good team, and I think still is a good team. Go Magic.
You know, that same guy who said put King Cam royalty and also said he wasn't sold on Magic Gaming. But I digress. Jazz Gaming, 2 straight losses now. They've gone from 5-2 right into that log jam of all the 5-4 teams. So a little disappointing for them, you got to say. But Magic, man, that's a huge win. That is monumental for their playoff chances. And yeah, I mean, they've got a shot at it.
Did I say they should put in King Cam?
Did you? Who said that? I thought you were talking
No,
about yourself.
I thought you were talking about me.
Yeah. Did you
Yeah,
say
well,
that?
no, I wasn't talking about myself at all. No, I was saying someone in the Magic organization or with the
Oh,
team should get. No, I.
well,
Hey,
I apologize.
extra low blow.
I apologize for trying to pile on. Anyway,
Hey, in repentance, you should have to wear some of those nice chains around your neck and those some beautiful. That's some beautiful jewelry right there. That King Cam.
uh, I'm just gonna go ahead and say I could not pull that look
I
off.
could not pull it off either.
Not
That's
in
why
a
you have to
million
do it.
years.
He pulls it off though, which is the
Oh,
important.
absolutely. Yeah, we'll just leave that to King Cam. Anyway, Josiah, tell me, who are you most impressed with in week 8?
Who was I most impressed with? Well, on the one hand, I'm very impressed with the teams that stayed true to themselves and stuck with the lineups that worked for them. But in terms of teams, Magic, easy, big comeback. Sold me on him once and for all. Please don't lose your next 5 games and make me look like an idiot. Please don't. That would be really cruel.
Yeah, I would say Magic, but to pick someone else, I would say Heat Check Gaming.
Yep, they were
That's
my number 2 for
yeah,
sure.
2 absolute quality wins in 2 weeks, and like I said last week, they were just kind of floating around like in the middle of the league, and now they look ready to pounce. And remaining schedule for Heat Check is kind of a mixed bag, but I would definitely put them as an early favorite to make it into the playoffs among all those teams that are at 5 wins currently. Josiah, who are you most disappointed with in week 8?
Hmm. In one game, it would be the 76ers if they hadn't come back to impress and steal a game from the Pacers the next go around. I want to say the just lackluster play by Kingsguard and the Bucks and by the Mavs. Probably the Mavs in the end. A game they probably think they should have won, and a game they probably in their practice time thought they could win in a game that they didn't win. So probably the Mavs.
I'm gonna say the Mavs too, and usually I try to pick someone different, but I think there's no real close second this week. Only scoring 60 points. The lineup changes didn't work. That should have been a gimme win. Turned out to be a trap game for them, and now they're suffering the consequences at 5-4 with 4 other teams. There are 5 teams sitting at 5-4 right now, with Celtics crossover also sitting at 5-5. So, and they did that to themselves. So, let's move on to the ticket. As you know, the final in-season tournament for the NBA 2K League season. The winner of the ticket gets an automatic berth into the playoffs. So this is big. It's not, we talked about leading up to the ticket how like a team at the bottom could like steal a playoff spot, but really it it's important for pretty much everyone outside of like Blazer 5 and the 76ers, right? Because if one of these 5-win teams gets it, then that just changes everything. If any team outside of the top 8 gets it, it changes so much with the playoffs. Uh I don't know, Josiah. let's talk about those bottom teams though. Of the teams with 4 wins or less, and that would be Grizz Gaming, Raptors Uprising, Pacers Gaming, Kingsguard, Bucks Gaming, Knicks Gaming, Warriors Gaming. Who do you think has the best shot at winning this tournament?
The Pacers, and that doesn't mean I think they're going to win the tournament. I don't think they're going to win the tournament, but I think they can certainly beat a very dangerous 14 seed in Mavs Gaming. I would want to say the Raptors, who very much earned their number 2 seed and played more to true form after having the hardest schedule in the league in the first 4 weeks of the season. But in the second round, they're going to get the winner of Heat Check and Wizards District. And in my mind, the winner of Heat Check and Wizards District is going to the finals. And I think that's a matchup that deserved to be later on in the tournament. It's disappointing to see it again in the first round. They had the same matchup in the turn tournament, but I would go with the Pacers. I just don't see any of those weaker teams coming out of the other side of the bracket.
I'm really interested in your statement that the winner of Heat Check and Wizards District is probably going to win the tournament. You say, or get to the
Go to
finals?
the finals. I'm not
Go to the
not gonna
finals.
I'm not gonna say they're gonna win it all, but I am going to say that one of those teams is going to the finals, going to the
Even
final.
then, even then, I'm a little surprised by that because you still have Mavs Gaming and Cavs
From
Legion
Mavs Gaming, no, come
and
on,
Magic Gaming.
Magic
Remember that
Gaming.
team that you weren't sold on? That's now five and
Yeah,
four,
but what if Hood gets
and you
that
said is
shot
going to
creating
make the
slasher?
playoff.
What if Hood gets that shot creating slasher though for the
Well,
first
then,
round? Come
what
on.
if Hood gets on that shot creating slasher? Then that's going to be real hard for Heat Check or Wizards District to get by,
Yeah, but
wouldn't you say?
I mean, we saw the Wizards run a shot creating slasher versus a shot creating slasher in their one-on-one duel to the death with Grizz Gaming. I would still pick. I think those are. I mean, the Cavs are a good team. I think the Wizards have so much confidence right now. I think the Heat are such an underrated team that I'm still prepared to pick them over the Cavs. I'm sad to see the Magic have a difficult opponent in the first round again, especially if the Cavs stick Hood on the shot creating slasher, which seems to be the logical move. But I'm still going with the number 7 and the number 10. And come on, I'm not sold on the Mavs. Come on.
Okay, interesting. That's all I'll say. I'll pick Raptors Uprising. Uh, I mean, it's not really a question that I think has a right answer just because, like, just looking at this bracket, there is no easy road for any team whatsoever. Like, especially with this new patch where anything could happen, right? We saw 2 major upsets in week 8. Anything can happen in this tournament, and it's going to be a dogfight. So I don't know. Who would you say is favored to win this entire thing out of all the teams?
I think Blazer 5 is still favored, because while we think there are some cracks in the armor, they still just haven't lost so many games, and we know that they're phenomenal in tournaments, but they have an incredibly tough road. It's likely that in Game 2 they play the Celtics, who are the only team to beat them since the very beginning of June. No, not even June. No, since the beginning of May, I think. And then if they can beat the Celtics, then they probably have to face the 76ers, who are a darn good team themselves, especially if they stick true to themselves and don't try anything crazy. So I think Blazer 5 are still favored. I think of the teams to win their little quadrant, probably the 76ers have the easiest road there. But I'm glad also that it's a 3-day tournament. It'll stretch out the drama a little bit. Get some teams sweating, send some teams home early.
Yeah, I have a question. Have the 76ers and Pistons met before? Did they meet in the tip-off semifinals? I want to say yes.
I want to say yes as well. Did they meet in the tip-off semifinals? They did indeed, and 76ers won 66-48.
Okay,
Yeah,
that'd be an interesting matchup,
that would be an
I think.
interesting matchup. But
Probably one that 76ers would win.
yeah, I should think so too. But again, full credit to Ramo, who is an excellent player.
Yeah, this is, oh man, I mean, I'm excited for this, man. Like, like I kind of, you say Blazer 5 are probably favored, and they are most likely, but you know, there's like a part of me that wants just like absolute chaos, and for like the Pacers or Raptors to win this, and then to just throw everything about the playoffs into just complete and utter anarchy.
No, I'll do you one better. Let's have Kingsguard win this all.
Oh my
You know, live
goodness.
up to their potential for once and just destroy everything we've been saying, everything everyone's been saying, everything everyone thought they knew. That would be hilarious. What's
Shout
one
out to
thing?
Moody,
Shout out
but
to Moody. Yeah, for sure.
let's just say I don't really see that happening.
No, no, not at all.
All right. Any final thoughts from you, Josiah?
Uh, I'm looking forward to Thursday night, which should be very exciting. I don't think they've released the actual schedule for that yet, in terms of who's actually playing when. But we do know that the play-in game will be at 6 o'clock on Thursday, July 12th. So tune in for that, if for nothing else. In terms of anything else, the stiff arm is gone. We will have to adjust to a world without a stiff arm until we go back to playing Madden. I think those are my only thoughts on the matter.
Yeah. Interesting week 8. Very interesting. A lot going on. Gonna be a hell of a ticket tournament, I gotta say. I'm really pumped to see how all this unfolds. But Josiah, why don't you tell the people where can they find you and all of your content?
You can find me on Twitter at AJ113_OS. You can find me on tsn.ca, mostly in the esports hub, or you can find me on Operation Sports, also in the esports hub.
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter at Will Beverina, Beverina. I run Dimer2K.com, and if you want to follow Dimer at Dimer2K, I write about the NBA 2K League and do some other things on there. But anyway, if you made it this far, want to thank you very much for listening to the podcast. Like we said before, all the support, no matter how big or small, no matter how long you listen to this podcast for, if you just listen for the last 5 minutes, always appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next week after the ticket.